Welcome to the town of Strathmore. The Strathmore Community Greenhouse, as part of the Strathmore High School, has worked together with Flowing Springs Permaculture and Soil Health to design a co-created permaculture plan for their space. And as I zoom in here, you can see here's the high school parking lot. Here's the greenhouse. It's a dome-shaped geodesic greenhouse. And this is the space that our little group has been given the opportunity to design. So as part of that design, we are going to share a little bit about what we discovered and some of the things that we came up with as part of our plan. So in permaculture, we are trying to connect the elements in our design with each other, what they yield and what they need. We take a look at various climatic influences, geographical influences. We look at water, access, structures to determine how we're going to put the pieces of this puzzle together. So this is going to be a little virtual tour into our space. We're using a program called Google Earth Pro, which is available free, a download desktop version. Online, you can go ahead and download that from your browser and load it up onto a MacBook or a PC. Then we find our location, which we have here, and I've zoomed into the space of the greenhouse location. And I'm just going to take you through kind of the outline of what we covered in this design. So it takes a little bit of research to find out some information about the space and the area that we're looking to design. We start out with geography. And this method and technique of using these folders and the structure of organizing all of this data and information is designed by Rob and Michelle Avis and Dakota Cohen from Verge Permaculture. So credits to them for an amazing system that utilizes a free program and provides a very functional way to organize our information so that we can stay understanding and keep things straight. So we begin with geography. We identified some elevation measures on our site. What this told us is that, and these numbers are based on the Google Earth Pro. You can see down here in the lower right corner, the elevation at any given point. So we did a few of those points, and we would take these numbers and then we would ground truth them on site as well to confirm that we actually have correct numbers. But this gives us a general idea of the elevation in different locations. So we know it's a little bit higher on the north end and it gets a little bit lower as we move to the southwest. Then we're going to go to our climate data. So we did a little bit of research and found some climate data from websites to get information about average rainfall and precipitation values, as well as monthly minimum and maximum temperatures. Gonna try not to say all the time. And then we identified various sectors in our sector map. So the first sector is the noise sector. I'm just going to zoom out a little bit here so you can see the various sectors. So in every direction, we have noise influences. We have a major highway going along here north-south to the west of the site. We have the ball diamonds and the egg grounds, the stampede grounds over to the northwest, the high school over here, and another major road, Brent Boulevard here. So we have noise influences from every direction. Looking at our fire sector, we identified kind of this north piece as a fire hazard potential, just given the trees that were there. The rest of this, a lot of this is pavement. This is a basketball court with a paved surface, parking lot, and then the shale pathway is a good fire break in case there was a grass fire. So we felt that our fire sector just was consistent about this area. Flood sector, potential flooding. There are drainage ditches that go along here east to west, and then it moves down to the southwest. Through down here, it's directed straight south and then along down into this corner of the football field. So our potential flood sector would be in this area in particular. Our wildlife sector, we're showing as anywhere outside of the high school area. We have a lot of deer that travel through the golf course, and they seem to be even less timid than they used to be, and are found, within residential areas and even in some people's backyards in town. So they're everywhere. Wildlife also includes, our ground critters, as well as our birds and various flying animals as well. Then we looked at our sun sectors. So our winter sun sector is here along the bottom. Our summer sun sector is much wider because we're in the northern hemisphere. And as the seasons change, the longest day of the year, June 21st, is the greatest amount of sun that we have. We also looked at winds. So the influence of winter winds is primarily from the north, and they come straight through these trees. There's a chain link fence in here as well. So the site can actually be fairly windy from the north, which we want to address. And then our summer winds typically come from the southwest into this direction here. We used a neat little app called Sun Surveyor to identify our, and it's not coming up for me, our summer and winter sun sectors. A very handy little tool app that you can download for your phone to determine the length of sun available in the direction during any day of the year. So that's a little bit about climate. We've talked about geography, and now let's talk a little bit about water. So water is super important for life, and it's important for our plants, and a lot of it comes for free, and it falls from the sky, which is amazing. But it's of most use to us if we are able to capture that in some way. So we have identified some roof surfaces that we can harvest rainwater from, and this is one of them. This is a shed. The football team keeps a lot of their equipment in this shed. And then we proposed capturing that rainwater and installing weeping tile, perforated weeping tile, or non-perforated, to direct some of that water down to our site. Another downspout redirected over here off of this portable. And again, weeping tile to run that along this row of trees here, which are a little bit higher up. This whole area is a higher elevation than our site. There's a little bit of a ditch here, but so the water eventually will drain down here into this ditch. We also proposed harvesting rainwater from our greenhouse itself, if we can direct that somehow into the raised beds that we are going to propose be developed around the site. There's our drainage ditch, as we talked about before. Roof rain, that's a swell on the greenhouse. And then our basketball surface. We talked about the possibility of, if this was ever resurfaced, to grade it in such a way that all of that would be directed towards our plants and stuff that are down here to support the growth there. So that's a little bit about water. And then the next element that we were discussing is access. Access is very important to be able to get to our space. So you can see we have a parking lot here, the student parking lot at the high school, which during school is very full, but outside of that, there's quite a bit of space and place to park. We have a number of footpaths. So we have a main walking pathway that we would like to develop from the parking lot here to make ease of access into this space. Currently, you can see there's just a little bit of shale pathway here. This is a little bit of a decline coming from the parking lot down here. So just leveling that out a little bit, firming it up with some gravel and whatnot will help make that pathway a little bit easier to navigate. We also discovered that the football team likes to take the shortest path from their shed over to the field. And so we wanted to make sure that we accommodated that in our plan, or just recognize that that's an important access in designing what we were, that we wouldn't make it difficult for them or awkward for them to haul of their heavy equipment to the field. Because this is a bit of a ditch, sometimes there's some standing water. We're recommending that we put a little bit of a footbridge in there to cross that area and get over to this higher area as well. There may need to be a ramp installed, just maybe a concrete pad ramp or something like that up from the edge of the parking lot over the curb and onto the pathway for accessibility. And then these are just the sidewalks that are there. Another consideration was this long jump pit. So this runway here was part of the track and field long jump, which used to have their sand pit essentially under the greenhouse space. And so now they're needing a new place to jump into. So we're suggesting either here, another alternative location would be up here in the far northeast corner of the property, where they can make their runway along here and put that sand pit in up there. So a couple of options for the track team. Okay, then we talk about structures. So there's a variety of things that we're going to put into this design. First being a solar array. So Mr. Hintz is planning to put in a solar array, and actually already has at this time installed the pole, and its final location is actually a little bit more here closer to the greenhouse, given circumstances that they discovered once drilling down. There's a cement pad underneath that they hit, so they moved it a little bit to the west. So just considering that, it was important because that solar array is going to be 3 feet by 4 feet, and it's going to cast shadows on this area behind it during part of the day. So just in knowing what we're planting where is important. We want to have a sign, a welcome sign for sponsorship, for people visiting the site to recognize what is there, why it's there, what's going on. We propose putting that sign right at the entrance of the parking lot so that people can read it just even from sitting in their car, don't have to travel down to the site to see that. Then we have a few benches that we would like to put in, one up here in this corner, another one over here beside this pathway, and a third one over here in this area that people can sit and enjoy. We thought it would be important to have armrests on those benches on either end so that people with potential mobility issues can help themselves down and up off of that seating spot. Then it was important to have a few garbage cans located. So we have one here beside this seating area and another one beside the door of the greenhouse so that we can take care of those things. Then we also have a pergola that we proposed for future development over in this big flat area. Great place for having outdoor classroom settings or meeting places. And one of our students in our course had a beautiful design for one that is loading right now, and has the idea to use a lot of edibles alongside it to make a bit of a screen. So using it as a trellis to grow food. She's suggesting peas, cucumber, basil, oregano, carrots, beans and just making it an edible space with some seating in it. So that's very exciting. This was another kind of version of it, a bit more of a rounded version that could facilitate gathering spaces. So lots of ideas of different plants to grow there as well. So that's exciting. Next, we have fencing. So we didn't put a lot in terms of fencing other than just to outline the area for our own reference. But fencing is a category that could be very important in rural properties or other areas where fences and whatnot will be installed. When we get into the plants, probably my favorite part of it, and we'll take a look at a couple of the different elements that we're recommending. So the first one being a herb spiral. So this one is going to be located beside the greenhouse to the west. And we have a list of potential plants that could be installed there. We're going to have a raised bed around the greenhouse in different sections. And we thought that these could be assigned to different community groups, as are the beds inside the greenhouse currently. And the suggestion of using log stumps as stools to sit at while working in those little raised beds. Those log stools could also be used in the space as flexible seating for events or other activities going on there. So we have a whole bunch of those planned around mostly the south and east side of the greenhouse. The north side will be in the shade for the majority of the day. If we did decide to plant anything back there, we thought maybe just directly in the ground and things like hostas and whatnot, but we'll come to that. We talked about removing the existing boxes, which is what these four black spots are. So those will be taken out. The plants that are in them are going to be planted directly in the ground. And then we have some beds to plant. So back here is our shade plants in the ground, hostas and ferns. And all of these different nitrogen fixers we're going to plant in between these poplar trees that are here. That's currently all that's planted right in the back are these poplars. So wisteria can grow on a trellis or on the back fence. Sea buckthorn or other types of nitrogen fixers. Lupins, Siberian pea shrub is another one that can grow in there as a nitrogen fixer, and then whatever other ones that we decide. So that's just kind of going to bring some nutrients to the soil. Then we're going to have some Saskatoons and Haskups. So we're looking at trying to install some edibles in the space. So a variety of or different varieties as well as types to be able to harvest those. And then we want to install a xeriscaping area. So some of the plants that we're looking at in that area include Russian sage, bee balm, echinacea or coneflower, yarrow, daylilies, junipers, potentillas. So we're looking forward to putting some of those plants in that area. Native pollinator garden in here, and we have some suggestions of plants as well as suggestion to install them from sun to shade plants going from south to north, just to ensure that those who need the most sun can get that. Then I'm just going to pop right here. This area is going to be an alternative lawn demonstration. So we can plant some sedum sod, they're calling it, and see what that's like. Some thyme, clover, potentially fescue. There's various different lawn alternatives. And so this is an area where people can come and see what those look like and feel like and smell like. Then in permaculture, that's very common to create guilds. Guilds are a combination of particular plants that benefit one another. there's a diversity in the area. And by doing that, each can benefit in their own way. They're not competing for the same nutrients, but they're supplying for one another. So they're kind of beneficial, supportive buddies in the ground together. So here we're suggesting a cherry tree guild of cherries, haskellts, maybe some currants or gooseberries, rhubarb, and then maybe some vetch as a nitrogen fixer. Another plum tree guild over here. This one having some plums, buffalo berry, alpine strawberries, rhubarb, Egyptian walking onion, and maybe even some asparagus. And this is on either side of the pathway. Can show that back here again. Just to keep that shape in there so it's easy to see. And then we're suggesting maybe some ornamental grasses to provide a visual separation from the track, from the football field, and yet it's something that will get covered in snow. It's not going to get terribly damaged if it got stepped on, like a shrub. That kind of just delineates the space a little bit. Again, we're going to put some junipers along the edge of our xeriscape garden to also provide some erosion control and winter interest. And then we suggest maybe some giant marigolds or other large flowering plants on either side of the doorway as a nice entrance into the greenhouse itself. And then a climbing vine. So the purpose of that would be for the wind block and as a pollinator. Some suggested species that could be planted there include honeysuckle, Virginia creeper, hops, clematis, some of the pea vines, the wisteria. There's a few different things that could climb and provide a little bit of windbreak there, as well as pollination. And as part of all of these, we didn't specifically set out a perennial vegetable garden, but some of the plants are edible that are growing here, the perennials, such as rhubarb and the walking onion. We could put chives in, and a lot of the herbs maybe perennial as well that can be provided food. Okay, so that gives you an idea of the plants. Animals, all we have for that at this point, we're not bringing in a herd of cows or sheep, but we are going to invite the bees and the birds with bird houses and bee boxes into the space to pollinate and just be part of the community. Community folder is something that, you know, in this case, it could be business. If you're designing a permaculture area for your business or for your farm or your backyard urban farm producing vegetables, for example, you could put all kinds of business related information in this folder. For us, because it's a community space, we talked about having some plant signage indicating what the plant species are, so that if someone was to visit the space when no one else was there, they could easily walk around and observe what is growing where and understand what's going on. And then another component is just the maintenance of the space and what does that look like, whether we're contracting students or community members, volunteers, or what that could entail is wide, and sometimes we don't know all of those things when we get started, but look forward to figuring things out as we go too. And that's the thing about a permaculture plan. It is a plan, and it's a starting point. And so as we start designing and figuring out what fits together, we also learn that we might need to change something. You know, it might look good on paper, but when we get on site, it doesn't fit right, or there's another factor that wasn't considered. So in that case, we need to be adaptable and change and flexible as well. So permaculture design is just a place to start, and that's but not a place to end. So that's exciting. And then tools, volunteers maybe needing tools if they were coming into the space to work in the gardens, to improve that or do a little weeding or tidying up or whatever needs to be done there. And then finally, soil. So this was the previous sand pit underneath. We just wanted to indicate that because it's related to soil. So the soil requirements, we're going to need to bring in soil to the area, amend it where needed as well with compost and mineral fertilizer, and potentially some biologicals, which we're looking forward to future workshops and courses in this space on composting and microbiology and just getting life back into the soil so it can do all the amazing things that it is capable of. So the order of these 1 to 11 folders is also important. Number 1 being what we have the least influence over, to number 11 being what we have the most influence over. So we can change what's going on in our soil fairly easily. We can't necessarily change where the water flows when it rains really hard. We can try and direct it and stuff, but we don't. It'll still go where it wants to go. So I hope that you've enjoyed our virtual tour of our greenhouse space, and I look forward to seeing the space being installed, being part of that process, and just celebrating everything that's going on here. It's really exciting as a community space to be a location where more learning and experimenting can happen. And if you or your organization or community or business is interested in doing a permaculture design course where your people get together and co-create a design like this, get in touch. I'd love to chat with you. It was really exciting, and coming up with this as a group was way more rich an experience than just creating a design one person without all the input that we had. So a big shout out to all our participants that helped out, that were part of this course, that shared their ideas and thoughts and expertise with us, because it was invaluable. So we really look forward to working together and seeing this and being in this space together again soon. So thanks very much.